strategy, I'm going to be using this book, Teaching Reading in Social Studies, Science, and Math by Laura Robb. I'm going to use the strategy Visualizing. It's on page 185, and it's in chapter 6. It's an after learning strategy, so it's from this book right here. And what I'm going to be doing is using this book, All the Water in the World, as a springboard into a lesson about the water cycle. So I would read this book, like for example, I really like these pages right here, so I marked them. It's talking about water, and it says, but where does it come from? Water doesn't come, it goes around. That rain that cascaded from the clouds and meandered down mountains, that wavered over waterfalls, then slipped into rivers and opened into oceans. That rain has been here before. Thirsty air licks it from lakes, sips it from ponds, and guzzles it from oceans. And this wet air swirls up till it's crowded into clouds where it hangs hotly around, till cool air bumps through, and honey, these clouds just let it go, and rain, rain, rain. So I like those pages specifically, but I would use this book to springboard into a lesson on the water cycle. Now, of course, when we do the water cycle, we're using the strategy Visualizing. So we would be making a diagram of the water cycle. But have you ever noticed that the diagram of the water cycle has all of these fancy terms in it, like precipitation and condensation and transpiration? Well, do students really know what those mean right off the bat?
No. What do they mean?
No, even this student right here, she doesn't know what it means. So what we're going to do before we do a lesson about the water, well, we would do the lesson about the water cycle, of course. But before we would do that, we would teach about vocabulary. And I found this thing right here, and it says why doodling works. So we would be visualizing through doodling. And here is a fact, and it says that in a TED Talk on why doodling works called Doodlers Unite by Sunny Brown, she states that people that doodle retain 29% more information than those that don't doodle, which goes back to the visualizing strategy. By the way, what I'm about to do, it's I found it on Teachers Pay Teachers. But so anyway, we are going to be making something that's going to help the students remember what this word means. So they're going to have this page right here to fill out where it says draw a picture, vocabulary word, definition. So they would need a pen, colored pencil or crayon, something to use to color it. So the first thing that I would have them do is to write down of course, their name on the paper, and then I would have them write down the vocabulary word. So the first one that we are going to do is the water cycle. And remember, we are going to do the vocabulary first. That way, whenever we do our water cycle diagram, they're going to be able to look and be like, oh, I remember what condensation means. So this is what's going on in that area of the picture. So water cycle would be first. And the definition is just, you would get this just from a book. I'd have them look it up in a dictionary. The changes to water when it evaporates, which evaporation is a word later on, so they're going to learn what that means. When it evaporates into the air, condenses, and condensation is a word too. When it condenses into clouds, so we would talk about what all of this means, and then precipitates down to earth. And then here's the part where we would visualize it on our paper right here. I have my word and my definition, and here it says draw a picture. So I'm going to draw a picture of what I think that means. And of course we would talk about this, and I would provide them with an example on what to do it. I'm going to use colored pencils. then my student is also going to do it with me. So would you like colored pencils or crayons?
I want crayons.
She wants crayons. So here we go. So what we're going to do is we are going to write or draw a picture for the water cycle. So of course we're going to have water.
Do I do water?
Yes, you need to draw the picture. And we're just going to do this real fast. So
Waves.
she's making waves. Perfect. That is perfect. So we've got water, and then we have some land right here.
Can I draw a bird?
You could totally, well, okay, we probably shouldn't draw a bird because that doesn't have anything to do with the water cycle.
Oh, okay.
Even though they do drink it and it does go out of them and back into the earth. But
When they pee.
so we're not talking about that. So no, please don't
You
draw a
brought
bird.
it up.
Please don't draw a bird. Okay. So we're drawing our picture and we're just gonna do it. And this first picture for the water cycle would be similar to the one that the diagram is, and she kind of has something to go off of because of where she's helping me out and being my student. And where I haven't taught the lesson, of course, I would have to show the students the diagram of this is the water cycle, and then go into, well, what's going on in this part of the picture when it talks about evaporation, and then you could talk about what does evaporation mean and do this activity right here. So here's my picture for the water cycle right there, and here is her beautiful picture of the water cycle. And she doesn't have this because I did give her her paper later, or like late, but she'll be doing it with me right now. So sorry about that. But the next word is actually a step in the process. So precipitation is the next one. So we have precipitation, and we would put it where it says vocabulary word. And the definition is water droplets fall from the atmosphere. Water droplets fall from the atmosphere in the form of rain, sleet, snow, or hail. And then, so once they have the word in the definition, once again, they're going to think, okay, water droplets falling from the atmosphere. Okay, well, how does water fall from the atmosphere? What does it come from? What does it come from?
The water droplets?
Uh-huh. How do they get down from the atmosphere?
Rain.
Rain, right. So we usually have a rain cloud. So what we could do is draw a rain cloud right here. And then we could draw rain droplets for this picture to help us visualize what precipitation means. And then I'm just going to write rain. So once again, there's my definition and my word. And then here is my picture, and she helped do this one, so whenever we do this in class, we could talk about it and be like, okay, give me an example of what you think of whenever rain comes down from the atmosphere. And I would have a student like her say, well, it rains, it comes from a rain cloud.
It rains.
And then, of course, one person doesn't have to draw the same picture as the person beside of them. So even though I'm drawing the same picture that she did, they don't have to draw the same picture because I want them to draw or visualize what's going to help them remember. So we're not going to have time to do all 6 words, but we'll do another one right now, and it's condensation.
Condensation.
So we're going to write down condensation on our paper. Condensation. And once again, they would look in a dictionary for the definition, but I have it right here to save some time. So I have the cooling of water in the atmosphere. Cooling of water in the atmosphere. Changing gas to a liquid. Okay, so once we have that, can you tell me what you're picturing for condensation, the cooling of water in the atmosphere, changing from a gas to a liquid? What are you picturing?
It's from a liquid.
Yes, changing gas to a liquid, I'm sorry.
Okay, so I always think of when I have a cup of water on a hot day and it's sitting on the porch and then there's nothing on the side of my glass, and then I go play like kickball or something, and I come back from playing kickball or whatever I play.
Very active.
And yes. And there's like water droplets on the side, and my glass is wet, and it wasn't wet when I went out to play.
Exactly, that is a perfect example of condensation. She is so smart. Now, what I was picturing was like after it rains and it's like real hot, and you're maybe where there's a lot of concrete, you see steam coming up from the concrete, and that is an example of this process. So, what I could do, I could draw a picture of that, but I'm going to show you her picture of that. She drew the cloud right there because whenever we talk about the water process, this is what we would be talking about, how it goes back up from the earth to the clouds.
I have the rain in the clouds. That's what the dots are.
Yes, perfect. Perfect example. Thank you. So we would do that. But I love how she said condensation. She could totally draw the picture of the cup. But for this right here, I would prefer it if she draws it something to do with the water cycle, which she did. So I do thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So that is how I would use it. To just recap, this would be a vocabulary activity before we did the diagram, which once again, when we do the diagram, we would be visualizing the water cycle, and it would be an after learning strategy. But in order to learn what that diagram means and what precipitation means and what evaporation means in the picture, we would do this vocabulary activity first to help them visualize and picture, oh, this is what evaporation means. This is what transpiration means. So I thought this was just a great little doodle and a great way to visualize and help them think about that's what that means. And then when they do the diagram for the water cycle, they can think back and say, oh, this is what condensation is. I've seen that. And that way we're all on the same page.
I really liked it because I like to be able to use my crayons and draw while I'm learning. I feel like I learn better when I get to color.
And see, it makes learning fun. So I think that is everything that I would do for this lesson. And I'm sorry it was rushed, but I only got to do 3 of them. But I hope you enjoyed it.